Good afternoon, this is Nicholas from Gandora Gaming, and I want to go over the new archetypes in the Wild West. Now, we don't know, we have two reveals so far for two of the archetypes. We have the Dinosaur archetype reveal, and we have the Ritual archetype revealed, but we still have one archetype yet to be revealed, and I kind of want to go over and speculate what that card's effects and archetype could be, because now reading the cards with context, we kind of actually understand what these cards mean. And what I mean by that is, when these cards were first revealed, teasers of them, there was a line of text that revealed what the archetype did, very like one sentence wise. And because of that, if now knowing in hindsight what these cards do, we can actually infer what the new archetype will do. So I'm really excited to go over this, and let's just go straight into this. So first things first, before we can talk about the new archetype that still hasn't been revealed, we gotta talk about the other two, which would be the dinosaurs and the rituals. And let's just start off with the dinosaurs. Alright, so first things first, we have the new dinosaur archetype, the Transcended Drakes. Went over this card a couple of days ago. But basically, if we now looking back at its effects and what they do as an archetype, we can now go over this text with more meaning. So what does it say? Transcended Drakes, a large-scale dinosaur that appears on the field by using different kinds of summoning mechanics. Well, what are Transcended Drakes? Well, we find out there's a fusion, synchro, XYZ, synchro. There's a whole bunch of different types of Transcended Drakes, and their whole gimmick revolves around normal monsters. Now, that part doesn't come up on this card, but it does reveal that this card's dealing with multiple different types of summoning conditions, which is really, really cool. And the same thing can be applied for the new Ritual archetype. Transcended Drakes are going to be a meta deck, no joke. They boost dinosaurs to such a insane degree, it's ridiculous. This is like the best wave of dinosaur support since the structure decks. No joke, all these cards are insane for dinosaurs. The fact that they allow you to pop babies so easily, the fact they allow you to enter so many different kinds of summoning conditions, the fact that they got a new Rhoda that's like just as good as the original Rhoda, which is crazy because that Rhoda is not once per turn as at any dinosaur, is kind of ridiculous. So, yeah, I think dinosaurs are going to be insane. And same thing goes for this Ritual archetype. This Ritual archetype is also insane. So, let's now go over that archetype. Alright, so now it's time to talk about the Novella cards. If you don't know about these rituals, I went over them last night. The new Novella cards are actually insane. But we actually had hints of what this archetype does by its own mechanic. As you can see right here, Novellas, a ritual summoning theme that treats its opponents to different cuisines. It treats your opponent as different cuisines. It means it eats your opponent's meanings. You're tributing your opponent's monsters to summon these guys. Man, Konami has a real thing about tributing your opponent's monsters lately with rituals. The new Gishki tributes your opponent's monsters get summoned. Now these guys tribute your opponent's monsters get summoned. It's kind of insane when you think about it. This is like the whole direction Konami's going, and I can't fault them for it. I freaking love it. So, Novellas, like I said, revealed what it did at the very beginning. A ritual summoning that treats your opponent's monsters as different cuisines. Well, this whole archetype's gimmick is that they tribute your opponent's cards as a quick effect to summon out bigger rituals. It's kind of like Megalith, but by more disruptions because you're tributing your opponent's cards, which is kind of insane, no joke. And if you want to see a deck profile on it, you have to wait till YGO imports the cards or Dual Nexus. But I can't wait to go over these cards because honestly, when it comes to all of the decks we've had so far revealed for this year, 2023, I think this is my favorite, honestly. Like, Gold Pride's really cool for Punk, but it's still not Punk cards, you know what I mean? Until we get more from that set, I think there's just a solid extenders in that archetype. But this, as its own ritual mechanic, is so freaking cool. This is why rituals is my favorite mechanic, because they're so freaking different all the time. I absolutely love it. And Konami, keep printing out amazing and different ritual mechanics that are just broken. Because Konami knows rituals have been down in the dirt for way too long, and someone needs to put some respect on their name. Everyone fears them when Drytron and Necrons are the best decks, but everyone just scoffs at them when they fall out of the format. And we have decks like Megalith. Which, by the way, Megalith was the best deck for like a month before that ban list came in and literally banished Block Dragon. Still think Megalith can come back if they bring back Bachjang, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, this card is just straight up amazing for the archetype. All these cards are. Let's actually go over the new archetype now. The archetype we don't know anything about, but let's see if we can use the clues given by Konami to figure it out. Alright, so now it's time for the moment of truth. We have Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul is the last remaining archetype that has still not been revealed. Looks like Konami is saving it for best for last. And this archetype looks sick. Vanquish Soul sounds like a Sword Soul card. And basically says fighters have released their special attacks using powers of attributes. So that part kind of scares me. Like, how do you use attributes when fighting? The only thing I can think of is like the power savers or the element savers. And their whole gimmick is that they change your attributes in their graveyard in order to summon out these like element lords, because the element lords used to be like this really clunky archetype, and now the element savers make them easier to summon because they change your attribute to like we have 5 fires in the grave, so now you can special out the fire or the pyro element savior or vice versa. Really cool archetype, but it's not good at all. And I don't know how Konami's revamping attributes. Like, this card literally says using special attacks using attributes, and that's what's throwing me off, because this, out of all the archetypes revealed, this one's the most complicated. Like, the artwork is just some generic demon monster with flowing white hair with a beam in his hand. So this is obviously the boss monster. But at the same time, unlike the other two, the other one said you use it as ritual material. So that's basically it. It's eating the monsters. The other one said you use different types of summoning mechanics. Well, they use Fusion, Synchro, and Link. Well, they actually didn't have a Link. Huh, that's strange. Maybe in the later support they'll get a Link monster. They'll have all of them. But I don't really know how to go with this card. So it uses special attack, so its ability against your opponent has to do with their opponent's attributes. I can assume maybe it's like locking your opponent via attribute. Maybe it's like a very like Gozen rivalry kind of deck where more like Gozen, because Gozen requires attributes, but it like changes your opponent's attributes so they're locked out of the game. I can see that as a thing, and maybe Gozen gets reprinted in this set as like this a Gozen type archetype. But that doesn't really sound fun, to be honest, as an archetype built around Gozen match, but who knows? Do tell me in the comments what you think this is. In my personal opinion, my shot in the dark for what this archetype does, it'd be really cool if this archetype's whole gimmick is that they change your opponent's attributes to whatever in order to then super poly your opponent's monsters. That'd be really cool. And the whole gimmick's actually a fusion-based archetype. That's whole gimmick is that they change your opponent's monsters into the attributes needed in order to fusion summon. Now that would be really, really cool. Maybe they don't like exactly work with Super Poly. Maybe they like have different attribute monsters in the extra deck, and based on the attribute they change you to, allows them to go into the different types of monsters. That'd be a really cool mechanic. And I don't know, maybe that's a little too broken. Maybe don't make it a Super Poly effect. I'm not really sure. But I don't know how else to use attributes as a special attack. Unless our monsters are changing the attribute, and it just requires a fire version of this monster plus an opponent's monster in order to make this guy. And maybe that's how it all works. But I'm really not sure how you use attributes as a weapon. Either you floodgate them with like Gozen Mash, or you turn their attributes or turn your monsters into a certain attribute in order to then poly with your opponent's monsters in order to then win the game. I'm really not sure. Maybe in the comments you can tell me some ideas, but hope you all enjoy and see you on the next one.